Hello YouTube, how are you doing? I am pretty good. Today's video is not part of the vlog series. This is going to go onto the training and information group. Just recently I celebrated my 1-year anniversary with Maverick, and I kind of want to take some time to give a recap of what this first year has been like. For those of you that have been following me from the beginning, know that I started back at the end of March, beginning of April. Came over here from my previous job and went to orientation, which was a week long, and there's a whole series of videos on that. I think there's 5 or 6 of them, and then I went into hands-on training. And of course, there's a series of videos about the hands-on training. Once I was done with that, I got my truck and was cut loose, so to speak, to sink or swim. I really didn't spend that much time on the road, about a month, I think, maybe 6 weeks tops, before I was invited to come teach in North Little Rock at the training center in the hands-on bay for 3 or 4 months. I kind of thought about it, and I did do it, and I spent almost 4 months there, and I did videos on and off during that time, talking about my day, things that was going on, thoughts and feelings. Those were more personal reaction videos than anything else. And then once that was done, I went back on the road, and when I went back on the road, they asked me if I would train student drivers, and I thought about it, and I said I would, and I did for 6 months. But the training program slowed down quite a bit, and I wasn't really enjoying it as much as I had at previous companies, so I went solo again. And for the last, I would say, 5 months, I have been solo again, and I've been much happier during that time. But this video is really kind of tell you how the year has gone, my thoughts and impressions about Maverick, and what's going on in the future. As I make this video, it's been roughly a week since my anniversary. My anniversary date was April 7th, and I've had a chance to really think about what the last year has been, how it's gone, what I think as far as how the money has done, how the work is done, so forth and so on, and what I think about Maverick beyond the general cheerleading that I do. Because don't get me wrong, and I'll talk about it, Maverick is a great company. I would say it is, at this point, the best company I've ever worked for, and it is my intention this will be the last trucking company I work for, at least in the lower 48. I'll say that right now. But first of all, let me talk about Maverick in general, as far as my initial impressions. This first year has been really good. It's been difficult for me at times because acclimating to a completely new trucking environment, pulling dedicated flatbed. I mean dedicated, but that's the only thing I pull, as opposed to what I've done in the past. I mean, I've pulled flatbeds before, but a majority of my driving experience over the last 10 years has been vans of one type or another, whether it was dry van, reefers. I pulled doubles for a little bit. I hated that. I've also pulled tankers, and of course I pulled some flatbed, but nothing like this here. Maverick's policies and procedures seem to be crazy at times, based on what they want, as far as you're going to get this type of load, and this is the way Maverick wants you to secure it, and that's the only way. Those things can be kind of maddening at times when certain other ways may make more sense, but Maverick has its reasons for it. There are certain products that we pull that are chain only. We have some that are strap only when you think they might do better the other way. convoluted loads are always difficult, but that's just the nature of the industry. The big part of doing flatbed is not just driving down the road, but making sure that what you have on the truck, on the trailer, is secured properly, so it is safe not only for you to drive, so it doesn't injure you, but does not injure the motoring public on top of it all. And that is where a lot of problems can occur in this type of environment, due to improperly or incorrectly secured loads. Uh, I mean, you've seen the videos on YouTube, you've seen them on Facebook, you've seen the photos in the news and everything else. But flatbeds driving down the road, stuff falls off of them. Lumber. I've seen coils off trucks. I've seen pipes scattered all over the road. I've seen all kinds of things, and most of the times those things can be attributed to the fact that the load was not secured properly. Maverick has spent untold amounts of money researching and developing their securement methods, and they work. There's one thing the Maverick says, and I have yet to see it proved wrong, that if you secure a load the Maverick way, no matter what happens, it won't fall off. I've seen photos of Maverick trucks who have been carrying a coil or two, and they've had an accident, and in the accident the coils come off. I've also seen photos and videos of Maverick trucks that have had accidents, and the trailer may even be totaled, but because the load was secured properly, the load did not come off. And that's a good testament to the safety and training that Maverick puts together for people, whether they're new drivers or experienced drivers. Straight up front, if you are an experienced driver, even if you are flatbedding for another company and don't mind working for a mega company or mega carrier, and Maverick is by no means a mega carrier by any sense of the imagination. It's still small enough that most people know your name, even though there's probably 1,000 drivers here. And not just because of your name tags or on YouTube. People know you because they get to know you very easily. I have met most every driver on the road, except for guys who do not drive in my regions. And I know pretty much everybody in corporate that's important, face to face and on a first name basis with them. And that's the way Maverick wants it. It's kind of unnerving to visit Little Rock and have the vice president of safety or even the vice president of the company, call you by name without even looking at your name badge. It's nice to know that they care, and they really do care about their drivers and about the company in general. Most companies have a tendency to forget that their drivers are the biggest part of their company, and without them, that the company wouldn't exist. Maverick does not do that. They go out of their way to ensure that, maybe not on a daily basis, but a very regular basis, that we know that we are valuable to them, and without us, they would not exist. So, if you're an experienced driver and you're thinking about coming to Maverick, I highly recommend it. The pay is awesome, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. If you're a student or a new driver or thinking about getting into this industry, give Maverick a call. You don't even have to use me as a reference, though I would like it. And find out what they can offer you, especially if you live in some of the core areas, and the options that are available here are great. The money cannot be beat as far as the real world versus trucking. Unless you're at a desk job making $40 an hour, you're not going to make the kind of money you can driving a truck. But there is sacrifices to go along with that. You're not home as much, you miss a lot of things, and the older you get, the more you seem to miss. So what I have here on the laptop in front of me, and you can't see it, is my year-to-date, what they call scorecard or milestones report. Of course, I got to put on my glasses because I have a hard time reading print. So I'm going to kind of just go over some of the things to tell you how my year has gone. Now, as I read these numbers, remember this. These are just driving numbers, okay? Remember that I spent almost 4 months working in the training center. And during that time in the training center, I was paid very, very well, but not as well as I would have done had I continued driving. But that detour really helped me as far as being able to do this job properly without having to second guess myself all the time. In addition, this does not include the $2,000 I was paid for training and orientation. As an experienced driver, I do know the students are paid a little bit less. If I remember right, it's $550 for orientation and $550 a week during training and during student driving. So, just taking into driving into account, and since it is just driving into account, remember that this is roughly only about 9.5 months of driving. So we'll just start at the top and to kind of work our way down. Salary over the last year, just from driving money, and this includes TARP pay, detention, breakdown, all the other stuff, comes out to be $62,300 roughly. That is a very, very good salary. I worked on average 5.25 days a week over the time that I did it. I was hung out over a weekend away from home 7 times, and a couple of those I know was my fault because I opted not to go home. They gave me loads that would go home. I decided not to. I averaged over those 9 months 1,928 miles a week. And excuse me, that's the wrong one. My bad. Hold on a second. Sorry, that's the wrong line. Sorry. Over the 9 months, I averaged 2,077 miles a week. And I handled. Sorry, it kind of rolls around here on this page. I apologize. I've driven 79,231 miles for the company. I've delivered 149 loads. 95 of those loads were tarped, and my average PFP score has been 88.5. I've talked about PFP before. That's the pay for performance bonus. It's a metric, and I'll talk about that here at the end in a minute. Kind of give y'all what it is. But it's metrics based on your performance as you go along. My PFP score has been hovering around the 90 mark the entire time I've been here. When it does get up high, something happens. Back in, I think it was November. Yeah, November, I think. I had that I've hit that bumper in the parking lot, so that kind of wiped out my PFP that month. And I've had endless trouble with my trucks and EPUs, so I've had to idle the truck a lot. So my idle time has been high. Let's see here. I've been driving an average of 7.8 miles per day, and I've earned just over almost $2,000 in pay for performance pay. So that's not really all that bad. Actually, it's pretty good in my opinion. $63,000 for last year. Well, for that April to April period. Like I said, that does not include the money I made when I was working in the hands-on training bays or the orientation pay. As far as driving pay goes, I'm on target as present of making $68,000 just this year, just for 2018 alone. That's the tracking based on my current averages. And that's because, and I'm in the Region Southwest Division. Now, as I make this video, this is my last load that I'm under in RSW. I'm switching to another division come Monday, and that is a percentage of load pay division because it's all short haul, semi-dedicated, and those numbers may change kind of radically depending on what kind of freight I get and what kind of loads I haul. And I'll do an update about that later. The money has been really, really good. I haven't included in those numbers money I've received from referrals from viewers like you or other people that have come to Maverick or any of my training pay. that I received for training students in the truck, and their bonus pay that I get, as they drive with the company. Let's see. So overall, I'm very, very happy with the money. I think it's on par with what I was making at my previous company. I will say that in my previous company, I did make more per year, but I was well paid. I was actually highly overpaid for the job I was doing, and I was working a lot less based on it, but that was because it was a specialized job, and the company that I worked for was, well, just overpaying us, and they were pretty much overcharging the customer as well. That's why we lost the contract. I'm going to talk about the PFP now. My PFP has floated, like I said, right around 90. I've been earning 4 cents additional pay per performance bonus per mile. My base pay is 48 at current, and in the past it's always been roughly 4 cents, so that makes it 52 cents a mile plus accessory pay. And the pay for performance is really based on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 points or 10 items, and they work like this. Well, the first one and the largest one is miles per day. Basically, the total paid miles you've driven, as an average per day. And these numbers, the goals vary month to month. Hub mile per gallon based on the hub for the quarter, and that hub number is not what your truck generates, but it's based on the mileage that you put in when you buy fuel. So if like when I bought fuel the other day, it was my hub was 357,017. They take your mileage is based on how many gallons you bought versus how many miles you drove since the last time you bought fuel. Idle percentage is calculated by the MCP 200 Qualcomm unit or OmniTrax unit. Basically, it records the idle time that the truck is just sitting, not doing anything. Service failures. Oh, which, by the way, in the last year, I have not had a single service failure. Service failure based on operations quotas. In other words, if you do if you miss a delivery appointment due to your own failures or pickup appointment or something like that, or a load is rejected because you didn't secure it properly, got damaged, those kinds of things. Whether you get any DOT inspections, whether you've had the next one is preventable accidents. If you've earned any safety points, and safety points are charged for things like improper securement, accidents, any other kinds of DOT violations, those kinds of things. Out of route miles. Your out of route is calculated on your hub based on your fuel combination and your fuel. How many miles out of route you drove to get from point A to point B. Just like in any other trucking company, they never actually pay you the actual miles it takes to drive from point A to point B, because they're not going to pay you to pull into truck stops and sleep. They're not going to pay you to pull off to buy fuel, those kinds of things. A lot of times you're going to run 1 to 2% over on every load. Some of them, I'll give you a perfect example. I just drove from Wisconsin to North Carolina. The paid miles was 800 roughly. It took 859. That was the safest legal route to go. I could have taken some back roads to a few states and through the mountains, but it wasn't worth it in my opinion. But you get a maximum of 10% per quarter on the outer route. Maverick Way, this is individual credits. They just give you these points for certain things like keeping the truck clean, washing it on a regular basis, your personal appearance. If some customer calls in and say, hey, Michael came in here and delivered this load and he looked sharp and he had all of his PPE on, and we'd like to say we appreciate that kind of thing. They'll give you points for that kind of thing. They also do it for equipment tracking, which is one of the macros you have to send on a daily basis, keeping track of truck information, so forth and so on. PM adherence, preventative maintenance adherence, whether or not you get your truck in on time when you're supposed to get the fuel changed, the oil filters done, that kind of thing. And then all of those points add up to a total of 100. Each one is weighted differently based on the number of maximum points you can get. And out of that 100, you get your grade on that. And the grades, there's 6 different grades, and they vary wildly. If you get below 70 points, you don't get squat. That's really what it boils down to. Looking over the quarterly data for this last year for me, of course, there was one quarter I did not have any data because I was at Little Rock teaching. My utilization during the slow points of the year, over the holidays and so forth and so on, was very, very low. I didn't average a lot of miles. Generally, my fuel mileage has been very, very good, except for months where I've had truck problems where I've had to idle a lot. Back in March, back in the third quarter of last year, I didn't have an EPU on the truck, so I had to idle to keep cool when it was, ungodly hot. Right now, my EPU works, but I don't have a heater, and I haven't had one for about 6 weeks mostly because I haven't gone in and had it fixed, haven't messed with it. My idle time is way up on that. This is the beginning of this quarter, so I can't really track any of the stuff based on out of route, that kind of things, because it just doesn't work right now. So those are pretty brief outlines. Bottom line, the year with Maverick has been very, very good. I'm still very happy to be here. The pay, in my opinion, has been excellent for the work I've done, I am just extremely satisfied with the way things are. Overall, pros and cons for the company. Pros, I talked about this a little bit already. Maverick treats their drivers well, in my opinion. I haven't come into any conflict, even though I do these YouTube videos. Some of the things I have said or done have come up in question, but they've never been a contentious problem with the company. If they don't like something, they tell me, but they don't tell me I can't do it. I haven't had any problems as far as securement issues or any of that kind of thing. There has been some questions about a couple times the way I've secured things, but I justify myself and I get left alone. Or the one time I did make a mistake, I corrected it immediately. Simple enough. The company training is excellent, in my opinion. The orientation is a bit long, in my opinion, a week long just for paperwork and orientation, but a bulk of that is because Maverick is, testing you while you're in orientation to see whether you are Maverick material. And then hands-on, you can't beat their hands-on training. Most flatbed companies that I know of, they only have 1, 2, maybe 3 days max. You get almost 7 days of hands-on securement training, not just looking and reading books, but actually playing with the equipment, using chains, using straps, figuring out how to do a load, that kind of thing. You can't beat it. I don't know anybody else that's even better. Some people say that TMC has a really good training program, but I haven't seen it, and my understanding it's only 4 days long, but I may be wrong, so don't hold that against me. The equipment here is very, very good, even with the maintenance problems that I've had. Trucks are going to break down. They're going to have problems. You got to remember that these trucks are built on a semi-automated assembly line. A lot of parts and everything are put together by hand, so these trucks do have problems, and they do break down. I have not had a new truck, so I don't know what they're like. My first truck was a 13. It was a good truck. My second truck was a 15. It was a pretty good truck, except for it had exhaust problems. This truck is really, really good, but it's got some transmission issues, but most of that's due to the fact that it's got an experimental transmission system in it. So it likes to do its own thing. But all the equipment is really, really good. Still have problems with trailers. Things break. Things aren't exactly the way they are. They got some great trailers. They got some crappy trailers. But most of them are all good. As far as the securement equipment goes, it's all good. If something breaks, they immediately replace it. That's another thing. If something's wrong at this company, whether it be equipment or a truck or a trailer, they will get it fixed. They don't jerk around and say, oh, we'll get to it later, like a lot of other companies will do. I don't know how many times that I've been somewhere, I find something wrong, I call it in as being a problem, and there's somebody there to fix it immediately. I've had to wait some couple times for tires, but that's because I was out in the middle of freaking nowhere. But in the last year, I've only lost 3 tires. That's actually pretty good considering the number of trailers I've pulled. I've probably pulled maybe 2 dozen different trailers over the time, and they've all been trailer tires that have gone bad. I've only lost 1 truck tire the entire time I've been here, and that was really on me because I drove over a bolt. Other than that, the tire wouldn't have gone flat. But accidents like that happen. If your truck breaks down, they will get it fixed. I spent 3 times. I spent more than one night in a hotel while my truck was either worked on at Freightliner or at the shop in North Little Rock. We got shops all over the country. You know, there's Marion, there's Burke-Burnett, of course, there's North Little Rock, there's Laurinburg, a couple others, where you can go and get something fixed if it needs to be fixed. And the company doesn't complain; they pay for everything. I really can't speak about the health insurance program. I have it. The health insurance is relatively good, but I haven't used it yet. From reading the literature, it seems good. The cost is not very high. I think I'm paying about $25 a week just to cover me. Cons with the company. Yeah, there are some. It would appear that at times that there's just not enough freight for the number of drivers we have, but that's partly the company's problem. That's partly the nature of the economy and the industry in and of itself. I have found at times that there is a lack of communication between the FMs and the drivers when you're sitting. They leave too much up to the ALMs at times, and some of the ALMs are good, some of them are bad, and they need to work on ensuring that more drivers are pre-planned in advance for where they're going to be. That's ideally when you pick up a load and they've given you your ETA and you've committed to that and you're heading to that location to make the delivery. Unless something catastrophic happens, or even if it's minor that makes a major delay, such as you break down, blow a tire, you spend 5 hours in traffic driving around Atlanta, which is not unheard of, those kinds of things that ends up making you late, they still should have you plan something in advance so you know what's going on and tell you about it. I cannot say, you can't even count the number of times that I've picked up a load, I've gone to a destination and then delivered, and then had to go to a truck stop or someplace else and wait for hours on end because they didn't have anything, and then end up coming, they end up deadheading me some god-awful amount of distance to somewhere where there's usually freight. And that's happened more than I can. I think they also need to work on some of their consistent regular shippers about their load times. This is an industry-wide problem. We have quite a few shippers and receivers, and I'm not going to mention any names, that we go to that we will routinely arrive at our appointment time or even before it and still spend 4, 5, 6 hours or longer actually waiting to load. And I've talked about some of those places in my videos. I once arrived 6 hours early to a place where I was going to load. Checked in, they acknowledged me, but they still did not get me until almost 7 hours after my appointment time to do my load. You know, it's just that kind of thing is not really acceptable in many times. So, those are really my only cons. Communication is the big one. They communicate a lot, but sometimes they don't communicate anything meaningfully. Overall, I'd give Maverick 4.5 stars if we're doing a star system. As far as happiness, I'm still very, very happy with the company. I may complain, gripe, moan about stuff on my daily vlogs, but that's life. That's the way things are. overall, I am extremely happy, and I'm very, very proud to be a Maverick driver for as long as I'm going to be here, which will probably be another year and a half or 2 years. So, if you are considering coming to Maverick, I've talked about the money. It's really, really good. And I'll be honest, I really didn't work all that hard this last year to make the money that I did. They treat me very, very well. I don't get a lot of grief. And the truck is generally pretty, pretty good. So, if you're thinking of coming to Maverick, or you'd like to maybe find out more information, give one of our recruiters a call. Tell them I sent you if you want to be nice. And, give it a shot. If you're, stuck in a job that you're not liking, especially if it's another trucking company and you live in the hiring area, it wouldn't hurt to find out if Maverick is a good fit for you, especially if you want to do flatbed. But don't forget, we also have a TCD division, which is refrigerated vans, and those guys are that whole segment is expanding, and they're doing really, really good in that segment as well. And we have a glass division too. So with that said, overall, I'm happy, and I plan on staying here for quite a while. So until we speak next time, keep the shiny side up. 73s. Be safe.